And if anyone is out there that can hear this, that has you, please, we'll do whatever it takes to bring you back. We love you, we miss you, your girls need you. No questions asked. However much they want, I will do whatever it takes to get you back. Honey, I love you. And I want you back so bad.
I think most people would agree that today is a good day. It's been over 18 months since the remains of Suzanne Morphew were found, and we've all been waiting and wondering if or when an arrest was going to happen, because it seemed pretty clear that Barry Morphew was responsible for Suzanne's demise. So today was the day. Woke up this morning, started checking on YouTube, and the news was in. Barry had been arrested and would soon be extradited back to Colorado to finally face the music. So I'm going to do a separate video where I just go back over the case for people who may not be familiar with the case. So I will do a video where I go back to the beginning and give you the key facts. But in this video today, I'm going to share the press conference, and then I'm going to read through the indictment. Now, because I realise that many people have already watched the press conference, I'm going to add timestamps in the comments section. So at the top of the comments section, I'll add timestamps so you can skip past anything you don't want to watch. I'll put a timestamp for the beginning of the press conference, a timestamp for the question section, and then a timestamp going through to the indictment. That way you can pick and choose what you want to watch. That said, right now, I would love to see as many people hitting the like button on this video as possible, just to help me get this video out there into the algorithm. I think it's fair to say that Barry is the ultimate narcissist. You saw the video that I played at the start, his plea video. And this has been the theme from the beginning with him. He has pled this whole, "I'm so innocent," which was, you could see through it. So before I go on to the press conference, first of all, I'm going to just quickly give you a brief overview of the timeline to date, just so you know how we got here.
What have these last 3 years been like for you?
Very, very sad. Very confusing. Just so traumatic. Like, literally, our worst nightmare.
I just wanted to play that to remind people that Suzanne's daughters are going to be going through some serious pain right now. Their father is the typical narcissist who had them convinced that he had nothing to do with what happened to their mother. And now they're facing the nightmare all over again of him being arrested. But I'd imagine this time round, the arrest is going to stick. This is the classic story of a wife who was going to leave her husband and instead just vanished. So on May 10th of 2020, this was when Suzanne vanished. Her mountain bike was found off the side of a ravine, and of course Barry claimed that he knew nothing about it and he was devastated. A week later, he made that plea video that you saw at the start of this video, pleading for her return, pleading for anyone who knew anything to come forward. And then jump forward a year from that, and on the 5th of May 2021, he was arrested over her death. The case was a schmozzle. So on the 19th of April, the following year, it was dismissed. But it was dismissed without prejudice, meaning that it wasn't a double jeopardy situation, and if they were able to find further evidence, then they could again prosecute.
Did you have anything to do with the disappearance of your wife?
Absolutely not. It's very hurtful to lose your reputation and your integrity.
Law enforcement, the DAs, believed that they had their guy, and they believe that there's a mountain of evidence against you. There's just not Suzanne's body.
They're wrong. They've got tunnel vision, and they looked at one person, and they've got too much pride to say they're wrong and look somewhere else. But I don't have anything to worry about. I've done nothing wrong. We had a wonderful life, wonderful marriage. She was just so loving and giving and such a good mother.
So finally, a little over 18 months ago, Suzanne's remains were found on the 22nd of September 2023. And that brings us to today, when we have the announcement of Barry's arrest. So I'm going to first of all share the press conference. I won't be interrupting, but I just want to share this observation beforehand. And that is, while it appears that the district attorney's office that are covering this have perhaps not dealt with a case this big before, possibly don't have the staffing to deal with a case like this before on their own, it sounds like they have resources coming at them from every direction. So I'd say this case is going to be very, very strongly prosecuted. Like I said, I will provide timestamps for you in the comments section so that you can skip on past any sections that you want to miss. So let's jump in and have a look at this press conference.
My name is Megan Bagwell. I'm the Director of Administration for the Office of the District Attorney here in the 12th Judicial District. Standing behind me is District Attorney Ann Kelly, that is Kelly, who you'll be hearing from shortly. I also have Sheriff from Saguache County, Dan Warwick, Warwick, Chaffee County Sheriff, Andy Rorick, Rohrich, and Colorado Bureau of Investigation, Agent in Charge Chris Adams, ADAMS. After District Attorney Ann Kelly's statement, she'll be available for a few questions. Any other questions after that can be directed to media@da12.state.co.us. Thank you.
I appreciate the members of the media that are here today. I scheduled this briefing to provide an update on the investigation that has been in the hearts and minds of the people of Chaffee County since Mother's Day of 2020. Suzanne Morphew was reported missing on Mother's Day 5 years ago. Law enforcement has never stopped working to obtain justice for this mother of two, this daughter, this sister, and this beloved member of the Chaffee County community. Through the tireless efforts of the Chaffee County Sheriff's Office, the Saguache County Sheriff's Office, the Colorado Bureau of Investigation, and the Federal Bureau of Investigation, I can announce today that the 12th Judicial District Grand Jury returned an indictment. The grand jury has indicted Barry Morphew on the single count of murder in the first degree. law enforcement, the Chaffee County community, and Colorado as a whole has never stopped fighting for justice for Suzanne. Cold case homicides are tremendously difficult. They're difficult for the families of the victims and the communities who wait patiently for answers. While it may seem at times that the world forgets about these victims, I can assure you that my law enforcement partners and Colorado's law enforcement community do not forget. Every unsolved murder is a tragedy, and we must never give up on our efforts to find answers in these cases. My office will be prosecuting the indictment as Suzanne's remains were found in Saguache County, which is a county within my jurisdiction, the 12th Judicial District. I am extremely appreciative of Michael Doherty, who is the elected district attorney in Boulder County. He has consistently committed material resources to small rural DA's offices like mine to assist in the sometimes Herculean efforts to bring justice for victims in rural areas of our state. His commitment to rural Colorado he's continued his commitment with this case. He's provided me with the assistance of a chief deputy in the Boulder County District Attorney's Office to assist me with the investigation and the prosecution. Colorado's community of prosecutors is committed to assisting wherever the need arises. In addition to Mr. Doherty's assistance, District Attorney John Walsh of the Denver District Attorney's Office has committed to providing me with appellate guidance during the case proceedings. So today I have with me Chaffee County Sheriff Andy Rorick. I stand united with Sheriff Rorick and Under Sheriff Alex Walker. I stand united in announcing this indictment. Through this process, I have seen firsthand how deeply Sheriff Rorick and Under Sheriff Alex Walker and the entire Sheriff's Department in Chaffee County cares about this case. I am proud and appreciative of our cross-jurisdictional partnership and their hard and excellent work. I also stand with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, who has never wavered in its commitment to this investigation, providing essential intelligence and investigative resources and expertise through the years. I also recognize and appreciate our continued partnership with the Colorado Bureau of Investigation. The Colorado Bureau of Investigation has done incredible work, and their CBI agents and analysts have worked very, very hard to advance the goal of finding answers in this investigation. Here representing the CBI is Agent in Charge Chris Adams with CBI's Pueblo office. I also stand with Saguache County Sheriff Dan Warwick, who is here with me as well. He and his office immediately answered the call to action when Suzanne's remains were found in the county he represents. Sheriff Warwick and his deputies are an essential part of this team, responding to the recovery of Suzanne's remains with the highest level of dignity and professionalism. I also want to continue to recognize what I have come to expect in my years as a prosecutor, and that is multi-jurisdictional and multi-state cooperation and partnership. I want to recognize the Arizona Department of Public Safety, who immediately responded to our team's request for assistance in locating and arresting Barry Morphew in the Phoenix area. Mr. Morphew will be held by Arizona authorities pending extradition proceedings in that state. And upon conclusion of those proceedings, Mr. Morphew will be transported to Alamosa County to stand trial on the indictment. This indictment has been unsealed upon the arrest of Mr. Morphew. I asked for this briefing to provide you with an update and provide information to the community. Me and my team recognize the importance of being laser focused on the prosecution and to speak with one voice. And so for that reason, all of the agencies that have been involved in getting us to this place, as well as the prosecutors that have been willing to assist me in this investigation and prosecution, they have all been instructed to send any media requests to my office, and so that's what I'd ask of you. In an effort to be transparent, I'd like to thank the Judicial the Office of the Judicial District in this district for making the indictment immediately available. And so you can get a copy of that indictment on the State Judicial's website. It is linked on a page labeled Cases of Interest, and it's under Alamosa. Barry Morphew is presumed innocent in this case and that presumption remains with him unless and until he is convicted at trial. And so once again, thank you for allowing me to provide an update to the community on this very important case. And I can take a couple of questions if you have them. Yes, sir.
What was Barry doing in the Phoenix area?
And thank you for the question. The question was, what was Barry doing in the Phoenix area? I appreciate the question, and that information was still being gathered. We have been working very, very hard to make sure that we run down anything we can with respect to this investigation, and our law enforcement officers will certainly be following that. Yes, sir.
In the indictment, you noted a pharmacology expert testified that ban would render the recipient unable to resist any constrictions to the recipient's ability to breathe. Do you believe the dosage of ban was so great it killed her, or that she was so incapacitated she was strangled or something?
And thank you for that question. I am looking forward to having our team present all of those facts in a court of law. Obviously, I would like to be able to provide my comments, but my ethical obligations will not allow me to. However, I am very appreciative of the Judicial Department for making that indictment available, and I look forward to having our team present this case in court. Yes, ma'am.
Why now?
That's a great question. And so we, as prosecutors in Colorado and law enforcement in Colorado, we are very dedicated to making sure that we don't forget the victims of cold case homicides. But we also understand that it is so important to make sure that we have done everything we can to bring a case to court. And we are proud of the work that we've done. Every victim of homicide and murder in Colorado deserves that kind of attention, deserves that kind of work from law enforcement. And I would say that having the opportunity to work on these cases and to bring justice for these victims has been very important to me. Yes. Yeah, let me.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Was Morphew surprised at all when he was taken? Was he expecting this?
And thank you for that question. The question is whether or not Morphew, what Mr. Morphew's reaction was. And I can tell you that that's going to be part of the case, and we look forward to presenting that in front of a jury. Yes, sir.
So the male DNA was found in Suzanne's car. Are you guys moving forward? Are you guys using that evidence for his trial? Tell us more about that.
And thank you for that question. The indictment has a wealth of information about that particular topic, as well as the probable cause that supports the arrest in this case. And obviously, we are going to do everything we can to make sure that justice is done for Suzanne, and that includes being as thorough as we can about the facts of the case.
Another question. When you arrest Barry in Arizona, so that's still investigating right now with Arizona law enforcement?
So the Arizona Department of Public Safety has been an incredible partner for us. They organized immediately when we asked them to respond when we received the indictment. So I very much want to thank the Arizona Department of Safety. What about you, sir?
What will be the biggest difference between the prosecution of this case and the time versus back in 2021?
And the question is, what would be the difference between the prosecution of this case and other prosecutions? You know, justice for cold case homicide victims remains a priority in the state of Colorado, both for prosecutors and for law enforcement. And that's despite any challenges that we may have had in the history of any particular case. That remains a priority for us. And so we have worked very hard to move forward in the case. This case is a different case, and I would refer you back to the indictment in this case. And we've worked very hard to move forward. Yes, sir.
On an emotional level or on a personal level, and it's okay if you repeat yourself, can you talk about the journey, your journey from the day this was dismissed until today? Just broad strokes, just tell us that story.
Well, thank you for that question. The question is, what has this process looked like, essentially? What has this process been like for the family, for the community, for our law enforcement partners? And I can tell you that it has been a long road. It has been a long road, and the families of the victim have been so patient. The community has been so patient. But I can tell you that our law enforcement officers have never forgot, have never given up, and they have been working so hard to get to the place where we are today. And so it is never enough to say we're just going to forget about it because it's too hard. And so that has been the process for me. And I'll take maybe one more question here in the front.
Can you elaborate further on where Suzanne's remains were found in relation to Morphew? I know it's undisclosed, but can you provide more detail about where she was found?
So it was in and around the town of Moffin, and that raises an important question that I want to address. And so the remains of Suzanne Morphew were found in Saguache County, and that's obviously a county in my jurisdiction. And so jurisdiction in this county is appropriate. I can tell you that I have reached out to and contacted my friend and colleague, elected District Attorney Jeff Lindsay, who currently covers Chaffee County. He is in full support of our efforts to prosecute this case here and has committed to providing any resources that we need to prosecute this case.
How did you know Morphew was in Arizona?
And the question is I'm sorry, can you say that again?
How did you know Buried was in Arizona?
And I appreciate that question. We obviously have never given up on this investigation. And so working with our law enforcement partners, we were able to make that determination.
Could anyone else possibly face charges?
So right now we have the indictment in front of us, and we're committed to working hard to get that done. So, and this will be the last question. Thank you so much.
Just one last question. From a community perspective, this community's been through a lot with the district attorney's office, and we've watched you take it over and repair it, stand here with law enforcement, something this community might not have seen in the past. We've watched you build a staff. Now we're at the point where we've got all kinds of television cameras here because you've done what you've done in this particular case. Speak to what kind of satisfaction you have and gotten here, and is the job done with your staff, and can you now move forward?
Well, and thank you. The question relates to the status of our district attorney's office and how where we've been in the last 3 years. And thank you for the question. The effort that we undertook to come to the San Luis Valley, that I undertook to come to the San Luis Valley and build the district attorney's office was quite tremendous. But I can tell you that the collaboration of prosecutors across the state to assist me, to assist my staff, to assist law enforcement has been absolutely tremendous. It is a testament to how strong our law enforcement community is and how united the prosecutors in the state of Colorado are. And so assisting me in building the office in the San Luis Valley, that is a testament to the assistance that I've received across the state. So thank you for the question.
Thank you for what you've done.
One last question, and when do you expect Barry Morphew to show up?
Thank you. So he's currently being held by the authorities in Arizona. He will go through a process of extradition, and when that process concludes, he will be then transported back to Colorado. So thank you so much.
So the charge is MR in the first degree. I don't know why I'm even trying to avoid saying the words that get me demonetised, because I get demonetised anyway. So you have count 1, MR in the first degree, after deliberation. On or about May 9 or May 10, 2020, in the tribal state of Colorado, Barry Morphew unlawfully, feloniously, after deliberation, and with the intent to cause death of a person other than himself, caused the death of Suzanne Morphew in violation of Section 18.3.102A. Okay, now let's look at probable cause. At 5:46 on May 10th, 2020, Mother's Day Sunday, Suzanne Morphew was reported missing to police by her neighbour. The last person to see her alive was her husband, Barry Morphew. Investigators responded to the Morphew residence at 19057 Puma Path near Salida, Colorado, to investigate the missing person report. The house was locked and Suzanne Morphew was not home. Her vehicle was in the garage. Her vehicle was in the garage, probably her daughter, one of her daughter's vehicles, was in the garage. There was no sign of forced entry. Sorry, it's been a while since we've looked at this case, so I've forgotten a few things. And her bike was missing. Later that evening, her bike was located down a hillside off a dirt road between her house and Highway 50. The bike was located less than a mile from the Morphew home. And can we just acknowledge that I think the boyfriend of one of the daughters said she never went riding in that direction. On May 14, 2020, her bike helmet was located 10 metres off the side of the Highway 50, approximately 1.252 miles west of the Morphew home and approximately 0.84 miles west of where her bike was located. Barry Morphew was interviewed and told police that he set his alarm and woke up at 4:30 a.m. on May 10th, 2020. He told police that he left at 5 a.m. on May 10th, 2020 for a pre-planned work trip to Broomfield, Colorado. According to Barry Morphew, Suzanne Morphew was still asleep in bed when he left the house at 5 a.m. on May 10, 2020. He told police she planned to ride her bike that day. Barry Morphew stated that upon arriving in Broomfield that morning, he checked into a hotel before leaving shortly after for the job site. The neighbours told Barry Morphew that his daughters were concerned because they could not reach Suzanne all day. Barry instructed the neighbours to check the house and specifically to look for her bike. The neighbours reported to Barry that neither Suzanne nor the bike were at the house, and Barry then instructed them to call the sheriff. Police interviewed one of Barry's employees scheduled to assist him with the Broomfield job. The employee told law enforcement that the employee and Barry were not planning to leave for Broomfield until the evening hours of May 10, 2020. They were supposed to drive together. Instead, Barry left without telling the employee. Barry called the employee at approximately 11:18 a.m. and informed that employee that he had left without them. When the employee arrived at Broomfield on Sunday evening, the employee noticed that Barry Morphew had failed to bring the proper tools with him for the job and the necessary materials for the job, and had not yet arrived at the job site. Honestly, this guy thinks he's so slick, but from day one, it was pretty damn clear that he was guilty. Review of the cameras at the hotel and nearby businesses revealed that Barry Morphew was in the Broomfield area for approximately 9 hours and 45 minutes. Of those hours, he spent less than half an hour at the job site. Instead, besides 2 brief visits to the job site area, electronic evidence and cameras from businesses show him driving around to various locations and discarding unknown items in separate trash cans. Hotel footage then showed Barry Morphew arriving back at his hotel room and remaining inside the room from approximately 12:34 p.m. to 5:55 p.m. Inconsistent with his statement to police, he was in the hotel and not at the job site when he received the call about his wife, Suzanne Morphew, being unresponsive and missing. In early interviews with Barry Morphew, he told law enforcement that his marriage to Suzanne Morphew was the best and that the two had a wonderful weekend together. When Barry was asked whether Suzanne would say anything different about their relationship, Barry stated no. Well, she wouldn't be capable of doing so. Barry Morphew's statements about his marriage to Suzanne were inconsistent with other witness accounts and evidence located. Specifically, investigators learned that Suzanne confided in people that she was unhappy in the marriage in the weeks and months leading to her disappearance. She discussed plans to divorce Barry Morphew with her close friend. She maintained documented notes of problems in the relationship recovered from electronic devices and the physical search of the Morphew home. Suzanne Morphew had been having a secret affair with an old acquaintance who lived out of state. She communicated with him daily over LinkedIn and WhatsApp. Suzanne's last known electronic message to anyone was to this person on May 9th, 2020 at 2:11 p.m, just 32 minutes before Barry Morphew returned to the home that day. An overall timeline of the week of Suzanne Morphew's disappearance shows that the disappearance coincided with her daughter, the only other occupant of the Morphew residence, leaving on a pre-planned road trip out of state. Because of this, Suzanne Morphew and Barry Morphew expected to be alone at the residence starting on May 5th, 2020, until either late in the day on May 10th or into May 11th, 2020. Suzanne Morphew drove the daughter to Gunnison, Colorado on May 5th, 2020 to depart with her sister and friend on the planned road trip. After May 5th, 2020, Barry Morphew and Suzanne Morphew were alone at the house. A forensic download of Barry Morphew's cell phone revealed that Barry Morphew had deleted a text chain with Suzanne Morphew from which an image of a single text remained. A screenshot of this single text message was saved on Barry Morphew's phone on May 6, 2020. That image revealed a text from Suzanne that stated, "I'm done. I could care less what you're up to and have been for years. We just need to figure this out civilly." On May 11, 2020, authorities commenced a search of the Morphew residence that spanned several days. The state of the residence and vehicles showed no signs of a break-in intruder. Even with no signs of a break-in or intruder, law enforcement collected items of potential evidence and DNA swabs. DNA analysis of the swabs collected produced several DNA profile mixtures consistent with what would be expected in the common areas of a home or a vehicle. The mixture profiles were processed through offender databases and were compared to the profiles of known individuals who may have been present in the vehicles or the residence. The results did not lead to any stranger or intruder suspects. Okay, this is important. This is the discussion of the glove box DNA that Barry's defence were claiming proved that he was innocent. An expert in DNA analysis testified that law enforcement provided analysts with one of the partial profiles developed from the glove box of Suzanne Morphew's vehicle for further investigation using a keyboard search. This allowed for the additional comparisons to profiles in more databases with less stringent quality control standards than the National DNA Index system for the limited purpose of creating possible investigative leads. That expert further testified that there were matches to outside databases nationwide. The term match used by DNA analysts does not mean identical. Rather, a match only means that there were other profiles that could not be excluded at the limited number of loci available from the partial profile for comparison. That's important. It was only a partial profile, meaning that whatever matches they had weren't going to be full matches regardless. So, kind of pretty much useless, really. The expert explained that she then compared the matches from those databases to the partial profile from the mixture on the glove box and excluded those out-of-state profiles as not originating from the same contributor in all but 3 instances. Finally, the expert explained that just because the profiles from those databases matched at the limited loci available for comparison, it did not mean that any of the people from the out-of-state profiles were the same person that contributed to the partial profile to the mixture on the glove box. Law enforcement investigators those 3 partial matches obtained from 3 separate out-of-state sources and found no connection to the case. Law enforcement located a locked gun safe in the garage during the search of the Morphew residence. Inside that gun safe, law enforcement located a dart rifle or tranquilizer rifle positioned toward the front of the safe. Law enforcement also found packages of New Dart brand tranquilizer darts in the gun safe. The packages of darts included capped hypodermic needles inside of them that were designed to load the darts. Law enforcement found one of these needle caps in the dryer after the dryer's contents were removed. Law enforcement also found men's shorts among the contents of the dryer that were removed prior to finding the needle cap. The shorts appeared consistent with the shorts Barry Morphew was seen on video wearing on May 9th, 2020, less than 1 hour before he returned to the Morphew residence. No tranquilizer formula was located during law enforcement's search of the home and vehicles. Police investigated numerous electronic devices and Suzanne Morphew's social media accounts, searching among other things for proof of life. That investigation revealed that Suzanne Morphew had not communicated electronically with any living person after 2:11 p.m. on May 6, 2020. Her last possible activity on any account protected by password access was 3:08 p.m, over 24 hours prior to her being reported missing. Records show her typical use of electronics and social media demonstrated that this was inconsistent with her typical pattern of life in the days leading up to her disappearance. Additionally, witnesses indicated that they attempted to communicate with Suzanne Morphew throughout this time frame, but received no response from her. These witnesses indicated that her lack of response was out of the ordinary. So time-wise, it really does place everything as occurring on the 9th of May, not long after Barry got home, I would presume. Barry Morphew's electronic devices were also analysed. A download of the infotainment system on Barry Morphew's truck recovered telematics data showing the location and activity of his truck at certain times on May 9th and May 10th, 2020. A download of Barry Morphew's cell phone showed additional location information. Based on data from his cell phone, Barry Morphew returned to the Morphew residence at 2:43 p.m. on May the 9th, 2020. The data did not show his phone or truck leaving the residence again until the morning of May 10th, 2020. The download of Barry Morphew's cell phone registered events related to his phone. An expert forensic analyst determined that some of these events were in fact Barry Morphew's phone being turned off during the time frame of May 9th into May 10th, 2020. Turning off a cellular device effectively disables its ability to record location information. Specifically, the forensic analyst noted that Barry Morphew's phone download showed it was turned off between 2:47 p.m. on May 9th, 2020, only a few minutes after he arrived home at the residence where Suzanne Morphew sent her last electronic communication to anyone. At approximately 10:17 p.m. on May 9, 2020, the phone was turned back on, so it was off for 8 hours, or seven and a half. Barry Morphew's cell phone was again turned off at 4:32 a.m. on May 10th, 2020, prior to him leaving the residence on his trip to Broomfield, Colorado, and was not turned on again until 5:37 a.m. when location information showed him on the road already in the area of Johnson Village. Testimony established that the times Barry Morphew turned off his phone corresponded to periods of time of significance in the case, where location information was consequently unavailable. Similarly, further analysis of the information from Barry Morphew's infotainment system, the telematics in his truck, showed an irregular gap in recorded activities. Specifically, from approximately 3:49 a.m. to approximately 8:10 a.m. on May 10th, 2020, there is no recorded data registering on Barry's infotainment system. An indication of no truck activity from telematics is inconsistent with other facts developed from Barry Morphew's phone. Surveillance footage and Barry Morphew's statements about his activities on May 10th, 2020. Specifically, telematics data showed Barry Morphew arrive at his residence at 2:43 p.m. May 9th, 2020. It then registered various other activities throughout the afternoon at the residence until it ceased at 9:52 p.m. on May 9th, 2020. The telematics data then showed activities resume from 3:25 a.m. to 3:49 a.m. on May 10th, 2020, at a GPS location consistent with his driveway. Barry Morphew reported to law enforcement that he was asleep during that time frame. Okay, maybe sleepwalking, Barry? From 3:49 a.m. to 8:10 a.m. on May 10th, 2020, the infotainment system or telematics did not register any data despite the fact that Barry Morphew's cell phone indicated the device was in Johnson's Village at 5:37 a.m. on that date, and Barry reported being in his truck travelling to Broomfield at that time. When recorded telematics data became available again in the records from the infotainment system download at 8:10 a.m. on May 10, 2020, corresponding GPS coordinates showed that Barry Morphew had already arrived in the area of Broomfield. This gap in registered data is inconsistent with the pattern of telematics data captured in the days and weeks leading up to this event. So there was definitely something hinky going on there in terms of things being turned off and locations, GPS being turned off, etc. Phone records for both Suzanne Morphew and Barry Morphew were analysed by expert investigators. The FBI CAST team analysed phone records for both Barry Morphew and Suzanne Morphew to determine location, information, and device usage related to their cell phones. In Suzanne Morphew's phone records, there was no indication of any user-initiated activity after the time Barry Morphew returned home at 2:43 p.m. on May 9th, 2020. Suzanne Morphew's cell phone device continued to connect through RTT data with the cell tower that services the Morphew home throughout the night of May 10th into the early morning of May 10th, 2020. These automated data connections, however, were consistent with the tower reaching out to the phone to determine its location and not initiated by the user of the device. After 4:23 a.m. on May 10th, 2020, Suzanne's phone ceased to connect at all, ever again. So that must have been when the battery went flat, perhaps. Just 8 minutes later, or it was turned off, or destroyed. Just 8 minutes later, Barry Morphew's cell phone data showed his phone ceased to connect starting at 4:31 a.m, consistent with the cell phone download showing it powering off at 4:32 a.m. Suzanne Morphew's cell phone never registered on any towers other than the tower consistent with the Morphew residence from the time Barry Morphew returned home around 2:43 on May 9th, 2020 to the time it ceased activity altogether at 4:23 a.m. May 10th, 2020. Despite searches for the device, Suzanne Morphew's cell phone was never found. It would have been in one of those bins, I would imagine. Police interviewed people that knew Barry Morphew prior to his move from Indiana to Colorado in 2018. These witnesses told law enforcement that Barry Morphew was a deer farmer in Indiana. Several individuals told law enforcement that Barry Morphew used a specific tranquilizer called BAM to sedate and transport deer on his deer farm. Barry Morphew admitted to using BAM in both Indiana and Colorado. Specifically, he admitted to using BAM in Colorado as recently as April of 2020, stating that at the time he had tranquilized a deer from the breezeway of the Morphew residence. On September 22nd, 2023, human remains were found in and around the shallow clandestine grave in Swatchie County. I did try to listen every time I heard it, but I still can't pronounce it. Suachi, I think, Colorado, near Highway 17. The remains were found a few hundred feet down a dirt road off Highway 17. This location was less than an hour south of the Morphew residence by main highways. The remains were determined to be those of Suzanne Morphew. The majority of her bones were recovered. Many of the bones were significantly bleached. Along with Suzanne's bones, law enforcement recovered a cancer port and items of clothing, some of which were consistent with bike clothing Suzanne was known to wear. There was no visible peri-mortem trauma observed. So, just for clarification for anyone who's not sure, peri-mortem trauma means anything that occurred prior to death. Now we have information which shows that the remains were actually moved. A board-certified forensic anthropologist, a botanist, and an entomologist all analysed the remains, and several observations were noted. There was a distinct lack of bug activity which was inconsistent with the remains having decomposed at that location. The clothing items lacked evidence of decomposition, which was inconsistent with Suzanne Morphew wearing the bike clothes at the time her body decomposed. This was staged. Additionally, there was a lack of animal predation on the bones. There was only a very small amount of desiccated soft tissue found on a few of the bones, and there was no hair mass located. All these features would have been expected if this had been the original gravesite where decomposition occurred. The forensic anthropologist opined that based on these factors, it was unlikely Suzanne decomposed from a fresh body to a skeleton at this location. This guy truly is a sick individual, isn't he? The El Paso County Coroner's Office conducted an autopsy. In addition to the standard toxicology testing, the Coroner's Office conducted an additional toxicology testing at the request of law enforcement for the presence of a chemical mixture known as BAM, or the combination of butophenol, azaparone, and medetomidine. The chief toxicologist tested Suzanne Morphew's bone marrow for the presence of BAM. All three of the individual chemicals that comprise BAM were present. Additionally, the metabolite for butophenol was present. The presence of the butophenol metabolite eliminated the possibility of post-mortem BAM contamination. The metabolites present also indicated that her death was not immediate following BAM exposure, because Suzanne Morphew's body had begun to metabolize the drug before she died. That's just really disturbing and really upsetting. I'll come back to that shortly. The coroner's office determined cause of death and manner of death as follows. Homicide by unspecified means in the setting of, I'm just going to say BAM, intoxication. A pharmacologist and medical doctor testified about the toxicology testing done to determine the presence of BAM in Suzanne Morphew's remains, about the chemical compound itself, and about the possible effects of that compound in humans. The expert explained that the toxicology testing done by the coroner's office met scientific standards of reliability and accuracy. He further testified that BAM is a chemical mixture of 3 specific compounds used as a tool for sedating animals for medical treatment or movement. Back in 2020 and the years leading up to Suzanne Morphew's disappearance, BAM was sold only by one company in the US and could only be obtained by prescription from a veterinarian. BAM must be administered into the bloodstream through intravenous or intramuscular injection to be effective, as the skin and GI tract do not absorb it effectively. BAM does not cause sedation instantaneously but takes several minutes to take effect. BAM is designed not to be lethal and comes with reversal agents in the prescription kit. However, BAM is not FDA approved for any human use. For that reason, there are no specific studies available that address the possible effects of the compound would have on humans. The pharmacology expert testified that the compound would render the recipient wholly immobile, vulnerable, and unable to resist any constrictions to the recipient's ability to breathe. In other words, he used his dart gun and he shot her with this sedative that basically paralysed her. It meant she couldn't move, she couldn't fight back. Surely this guy must be one of the most evil people to have walked this planet in a long time. Records were obtained for BAM prescriptions related to Barry Morphew. Records were also obtained for BAM prescriptions for all persons within the counties and adjacent counties to where the Morphews lived and where Suzanne Morphew's remains were located. Those records show that Barry Morphew obtained and filled several prescriptions for BAM while living in Indiana. Barry Morphew's last purchase of BAM by prescription was in March of 2018. Barry obtained multiple kits that each contained multiple doses just a few months before the Morphews moved to Colorado. Records further show that no other private citizens or private businesses in any of the surrounding counties had purchased BAM prescriptions from 2017 to 2020. Colorado Parks and Wildlife and the National Park Service were the only entities that received prescriptions of BAM in those counties from 2017 through to 2020. Investigators learned that each of these government entities enforce tight regulations to monitor the BAM prescription storage and use. None of the BAM from those agencies was unaccounted for. Ultimately, the prescription records show that when Suzanne Morphew disappeared, only one private citizen living in the entire area of the state had access to BAM, Barry Morphew. All offences against the peace and dignity of the people of the state of Colorado. And then at the end of the document, you basically just have the signed document by the foreperson of the grand jury. I, such and such, foreperson of the 12th Judicial District Grand Jury, do hereby swear and affirm that each and every true bill returned in this indictment by the 2024-2025 12th Judicial District Grand Jury was arrived at after deliberation and with the assent and agreement to the existence of probable cause by at least 9 members of the 2024-2025 12th Judicial District Grand Jury. So that's the indictment. They've kept it short and sweet, as you can see. Obviously we know a lot more information about the case because of it previously being, well, attempted to be tried and then dismissed. As I said, I will do a follow-up video on this, just giving you a history, how we got here, basically looking at the case from day one through to this final arrest. Hopefully now, 5 years on, we will see justice for Suzanne Morphew. Now, before I finish, I should also mention, anyone who's not familiar with my channel, I have a Patreon account. It is a free membership. Basically, you just hop over to Patreon and you just need an email address. You sign up for free, and then any documents that I've covered on my channel, such as what I've covered today, will be available for free for my Patreon members. So I will upload this document to Patreon for you, so that if you want a copy of it for yourself, if you want to read through it again for yourself, it will be there. Now, as many of you would be aware at this point in time, I am currently having issues with demonetization of my videos, with shadow banning of my videos. Basically, my channel is struggling at the moment. I have a Buy Me a Coffee account, which is linked in the description for this video if anybody is interested in just helping me out a little bit to try and help me keep this channel going during this difficult period. People have asked me if I have a Cash App. Cash App isn't available in Australia, so the next best option for me is Buy Me a Coffee. With that, they only retain 5%, and that's basically processing fees. With that said, if you are new to my channel, please subscribe. That will help me out. And one thing that will definitely help me out immensely is if you hit that like button for this video. Also, of course, please leave a comment, because that also makes a difference in terms of getting my videos out into the algorithm. So on that note, thanks for listening, and I will catch you in the next one.
I've been